Hello, and welcome to the Chain Smoking Writers channel, your best source for the myths, legends, and history of the Chinese people. 6,000 years of historical stories, one video at a time. In today's episode, we talk about Huangdi. Together with Yan that we spoke about in the previous episode, they were considered the founding fathers of Chinese civilization as we know it today. Huangdi was also considered the foremost of the 5 legendary teachers of prehistoric China, and his contributions to the development of civilization as we know it, Chinese civilization as we know it, can hardly be overstated. So what did he do? What were his contributions, and why was he recognized as the father of Chinese civilization? Stick around for the video to find out more. Now, it was said that there was this small mountain in what is today's Henan's Xinzhen, and this mountain was named Ci Mountain. And at the base of this mountain, there flowed a river called Jisui, or the Ji River. And beside this river, there was a cave where an elderly couple lived. The old man was named Gongsun, and his wife, his spouse, was named Fu Bao. One afternoon, as Fu Bao was scavenging for wild vegetables and berries for food on the northern slope of the little mountain, there rose a sudden gust of wind that whipped up so much sand and dust that the sun was hidden and the sky turned dark. And it was at this point a sudden beam of white light shot down through the clouds and struck Fu Bao. And Fu Bao lost consciousness immediately. When she came to, when she awoke, it was already the night, and the stars were sparkling in the sky, and a gentle breeze was blowing, and it was as if nothing has happened. And Fu Bao rushed back home to her cave dwelling in a panic, and it wasn't long before she realized that she was pregnant. And this strange, unexplained pregnancy lasted all of 1 month. And at the end of the month, she gave birth, she delivered a meatball, a ball of flesh. That's the best way I can describe it. And I mean, with today's medical knowledge, she most probably had a tumor or something and it passed off her. Maybe it was a cyst. But yeah, back to the story. So this meatball, this ball of flesh, grew at an alarming rate the moment it touched the ground. And it wasn't long before a fully grown teenage boy broke out of the shell of meat, this meat shell. So this was the miraculous birth of Huangdi. And it was said that he was born with 4 faces, so he could see in 4 different directions at the same time. And he had the power to manipulate all the yin and the yang energies of the universe. And he had dominion over the deities in charge of the thunder, lightning, winds, and rain. So due to this miraculous birth, and by merit of his virtues and talents, Huangdi very soon gained the respect of the people around him. And they quickly elected him to be their leader. And thus he became the chieftain or the king of the Youxiong tribe. Now, this was a time where the leaders of the various tribes across the land were kind of denoted by the virtues of colors and the basic elements in nature. So in the east, there was a green king or the green chief that represented the virtue of wood. And in the south, there was the red king or the red chief, basically the title that Yan had, which we mentioned earlier in a previous episode. So in the south, there was a red king that represented the virtue of flames and fire. In the west, there was a white king or the white chief that represented the virtue of metals. And in the north, there was the black king or the black chief that represented the virtues of water. And since Huangdi ruled in the central plains and he represented the virtues of earth, he was known as Huangdi, the Yellow King or the Yellow Chief. When Huangdi took over the mantle of leadership of his people, he aggressively promoted agriculture, because the land that he ruled over was very fertile. The Central Plains was a very fertile region, and so it was very conducive to agricultural activities. And he also discovered that you could mine metal ores from the mountains, and you could actually make better and more advanced tools and weapons from this metal, as opposed to using stone tools as they have done previously. So all these innovations and policies that Huangdi pursued and implemented in his lands greatly improved the life of his people and amassed great wealth and prosperity for the land. And of course, the other leaders of the other tribes around him got jealous. And so they plotted among themselves to invade the lands of Huangdi and to carve up his lands for themselves. When Huangdi learned of these plans of invasion, he quickly rallied his people. He gathered his men and he addressed them. He basically told them, he said, "I am but a simple man. I am a man of peace. But now these foreign invaders are going to come into our land and they will cause untold sufferings to our people. I am left with no choice. I have no choice but to lead you into war, to fight for this peace and prosperity and stability that we cherish so much." He then led his people to the borderlands to fight off these invaders, and they fought 52 battles, and they won 52 battles. It could be because they were better equipped, they had better technology, we don't know. But the fact is, Huangdi and his tribe, the Youxiong tribe, fought and won every single battle launched by the invaders, and they established themselves once and for all as the overlords of the land, as the supreme power on the land, and the other tribes were subjugated and they were made vassals to Huangdi and his people. He was recognized as the heavenly king of the Central Plains, the Yellow Emperor, the overlord of all men and the ruler of all the realms. And having received this mandate from the people, from the various leaders that were defeated by him, Huangdi went on to establish provinces and maybe even counties, basically just reorganizing, the borders of the lands. He then went on to standardize the various rituals and the traditions of the people from the various different tribes and clans, and he greatly promoted education to improve the lives and the knowledge of the people. I mean, we know now that education is basically the cornerstone of any successful society. And so Huangdi was a great proponent of this idea. So he made sure that the people were educated in the latest knowledge to help them build better lives for themselves. Huangdi's followers and his ministers also made great contributions to the development of society. For example, his minister Cao Hu invented clothing, shirts or robes to cover the top of the body, and Bo Yu invented garments for the lower half of the body, so most probably a kind of covering, a kind of skirts or a very early kind of pants. And the people transitioned from wearing furs and skins to wearing proper clothes. And another minister, Yu Zhe, invented shoes or sandals, woven shoes or sandals. So the feet of the people were protected. No longer would they have to suffer being cut on their feet over the rough terrains. Huangdi himself, being inspired by a leaf that was floating on water, came up with the idea of making boats to ferry people and goods across water. And he was also inspired by the way certain flowers, the way they turn and they twist in the wind, to invent the wheelbarrow or wheel carriages to better transport humans or transport goods across the land. And these innovations greatly improved the productivity levels and the quality of life for the people living under his rule. Now, with all these innovations and with access to better tools and construction techniques, the people were able to build sturdy buildings on the ground, and they started building houses, and they could finally say goodbye to cave dwelling or tree dwelling, as was practiced by their ancestors and predecessors. Huangdi then went on to recognize the 28 constellations in the skies. He then split days into blocks of 10 according to the Tiangan or the heavenly stamps. And then he organized a year into 12 months according to the Dizhi, which is the earthly branches. And he calculated in a way that a full cycle, a full celestial cycle, would be 60 years by combining the 5 elements and the 12 earthly branches. This was basically the earliest and the simplest, most rudimentary form of a calendar for the Chinese people. And in fact, most of these calculations are still in use until today. So this was a contribution that lasted for goodness knows how many millennia. Huangdi then instructed one of his followers, Changjie, to develop a system of writing to record important events that happens around them. And we will get into this story in a future episode, so keep your eyes out for that. And later with another follower, Qi Bo, Huangdi composed what is now known as Huangdi Neijing, or the esoteric scriptures of the Yellow Emperor, which is a medical text that is viewed as the fundamental doctrinal source for all traditional Chinese medicine, even until today. At this time, Huangdi felt that as a unified people that was made up of disparate tribes and clans originally, now that they are unified, they would need a common totem to represent their collective identity. So he ordered all the clan chiefs and the tribal chiefs to submit copies of their individual clan or tribal totems to be used as references for the creation of the new common totem that would signify the collective identity of the people. Now, what turned up was basically hundreds and hundreds of different totems that represented all the different kinds of beasts and natural phenomena that represented the identities of the various tribes and clans. And so Huangdi summoned his trusted advisors, Changjie, that we mentioned earlier, and we will talk more about in future episodes, and this other advisor named Feng Hou. He summoned them to him, and he pointed to all these totems that are laid out in front of him, and he said to them, to be fair to all the tribes and clans that have now come under my rule, we shall have a new common totem that would have characteristics that represents all of them. The new totem shall have the body of a serpent, the scales of a fish, and the head of a horse. It shall have the nose of a lion, the eyes of a tiger, and the tongue of an oxen. It shall also have the horns of a deer, the tusks of an elephant, and the beard of a goat. And it will also have the tail of a dog and the talons of an eagle. But now my biggest problem is, what shall we call this beast? And at this time, Changjie, being the intelligent man that he was, put forth the suggestion that we shall call it the dragon. Because the dragon could churn the clouds as it flew through the skies, and it could call forth thunders and lightning with its roars in the heavens. And it would turn the waters and the waves as it frolicked and played in the waters. The dragon is a mighty beast, and it is a worthy totem for the people. Now, the dragon totem became established as a symbol for the people. And this symbol lasted through the test of time. It lasted for millennia. And even today, the Chinese people refer to ourselves as descendants of the dragon. It was said that Huangdi lived to the ripe old age of 118. And on his final inspection trip to Henan at 118, a golden dragon descended from the heavens and spoke to him. O great sovereign of man, your mission on the mortal realm is complete. I have been sent here to bring you back with me to the heavenly realms. Knowing that it was impossible to defy the will of heaven, knowing that it was impossible to defy the will of heaven, Huangdi climbed onto the dragon's back for his trip up to the heavenly realms. And as they passed by this place known as Qiaoshan or Qiao Mountain in today's Shanxi province, Huangdi made a request to the dragon that he could speak to his people for the last time to assure them things would be okay even if he was gone. And with tears in their eyes and in great sorrow, the people gathered from all around the area to see their great leader for the last time. And they were begging, to have their leader stay with them for a longer period of time. They couldn't bear to see him go. And in their desperate bid to hold on to Huangdi as the dragon took off again, they tore off a piece of his sleeve from his robe. And what happened was that in remembrance of Huangdi, in memorial, the people buried this piece of sleeve in cenotaph, and they built a temple beside this burial ground to worship Huangdi. Now, later on, thousands of years later, in the Han Dynasty, the little temple was rebuilt into a giant, a mausoleum for emperors of the land to conduct their formal worships and rituals. So that was the story of the first father of civilization of the Chinese people. And if you enjoyed this story, remember to click the like button below. And let's move on to the bonus facts and trivial section. So I have touched on this topic a little bit in a previous episode where we discussed the difference between contributions being attributed to singular characters and to tribes. In this case, I believe that Huangdi is most probably not a singular person, but rather Huangdi is a title of the leader of the Youxiong tribe. Just like how I believe that Yanti is the title of the leader of the Shenong tribe. It's logical. I think it's a logical conclusion because if we talk about the developments and the advancements that was being made in this story, I mean, you identified 28 constellations, you invented boats, you invented wheeled carriages, and all these different innovations and developments. I think it could hardly be achieved by a singular person in a single lifetime. It's hard to imagine that happening. So what I believe happened was is most probably a collective effort by an entire tribe over a period of time that all these developments happen. And to make it easier to pass down to future generations as a story, they were all attributed to a single person. So it could be many generations of different Huangdis leading their people to make all these new discoveries, just like how agriculture developed in the Shenong tribe under many different generations of Yanti. And another point is that in a future episode, in the next few episodes, we will be talking about a conflict between the two tribes, the Shenong tribe and the Youxiong tribe. And in the stories, it will be said that it was a conflict between Huangdi and Yanti. So that would be highly implausible, seeing that these two characters lived basically at least hundreds of years apart from each other. So unless Yanti can live the ripe old age of like 1,800, it would be highly implausible for these two characters to have met face to face, much less have a conflict and fight a war. So I believe it was a later generation of Yanti that met with one of the generations of Huangdi that were engaged in this battle and conflict. But that's a story for a future episode, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And I guess that's about it for this video. If you like these stories and videos like this, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you get notified whenever a new video drops. If you like to support my work or connect with me on any other social media platforms, all the links are down in the description section below, so make sure you check it out and connect with me. What are some of the stories of your early founding fathers, the foundation stories of your culture? I will be interested to know that, so let me know about them in the comment section and I'll be sure to reply to every single comment that you put down there. I guess that's about it for today's video and I'll see you soon.